jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop sheagle. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop sheagle. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.
Good evening and welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Independent Thinking. We don't need to talk to him. We'll talk to this guy instead. John Rebchook. You used to work for the Rocky Mountain News as a real estate reporter.
Yes.
And so how's that Rocky Mountain News job treating you lately?
Well, the Rocky Mountain News, believe it or not, went out of business. It was the oldest ongoing business in Colorado. We closed just shy of our 150th birthday.
It still breaks my heart. I go out to the end of the driveway and we're supposed to have two papers there, not just one.
Thanks, John. Mine too.
So a guy who reports on real estate, a guy who owns some real estate, former state senator Tom Weins. Good to see you again. How you like being a free man?
It's good. It's good.
Right?
And being a citizen again, you know, we have a citizen legislature. Thought it might be a good idea to be a
Get
citizen
out of there
for a while. Yeah.
Now you're also make some money in the real estate world. Not only have you owned real estate and worked in it, but you also do capital for real estate.
Mm-hmm. And
what do you do?
And the mortgage business, and we put transactions together for commercial transactions and also for residential transactions.
So when I'm looking to refi, are you the guy to talk to?
You can call me.
I can call me. Not after the smart remark you gave me beforehand. Anyway, let's get down to it. I get a sense that Colorado's market has changed in real estate dramatically. Now, I live up in Boulder, and I was able to buy a house, it was 1992, and I bought it just in time, that if I bought it another half hour later, I wouldn't have been able to afford it, and I'd be living in some slum like where Tom lives. And I've been fortunate to get it. And the old saying was, you can never go wrong buying real estate. I mean, you could never go wrong buying real estate. That's no longer true.
Well, I guess it depends on how long your time horizon is. The late Trammell Crow used to say, the secret to great wealth is to own real estate and live a long time. So I think if you live long enough, you'll see a lot of peaks and valleys, and you will do okay. For example, we bought our home in Northwest Denver in 1984 for $84,000, and I probably lived there for 7 years before I could have sold for a profit. Well, then 2 years ago, we sold for $428,000. So, but we put some improvements, or so it wasn't all profit, but still, that was a good return on our money. But we had 7 years when, a lot of people during the 80s were walking away from their mortgages, and a lot of people I knew in my neighborhood who paid even less for their home than me, end up seeing their home go into foreclosure.
Let's talk a little bit about the 1980s. Now, I remember the 1980s. I remember when the bust happened here, and I remember the pictures of skyscrapers in Denver where you could see all the way through the windows to outside the other windows. I mean, there was nothing here, and that was pretty much my old man's problem. I was getting out of high school. I was going to college, and the economy sucks. I was chasing girls. I really didn't have to worry about that. You remember it as well. How bad was it?
It was bad, and it wasn't just in Denver. It was all over the state, and it wasn't a recession. It was more like a depression, particularly in western Colorado, when you had the collapse of the oil shale industry and you had the collapse of the oil markets, and then you had interest rates that went so high. My own personal experience, I was building some townhouses on Lake Dillon. When I signed my construction loan, it was, I think, 6 3/4. And when I topped off that project, it was 21.5% interest. And mortgage rates had gone through the roof, and you can see those things happen. And when you have inflationary issues like we may very well be facing in the future, we could see a repeat of the 1980s around the corner. We might have a recovery, but we've got this looming pressure on the horizon that might lead to inflation, which would then create more competition in the market for money and see interest rates spike again. And real estate is wholly dependent upon access to capital, access to credit markets to make the real estate market work.
And to put it in real simple terms that I could understand, because people don't save up and then buy a house. They move into a house and borrow and buy it and hope that the value of that home appreciates. It's the equity. This is the leverage people use to build their lives, to get enough equity for their retirement or their kids' education or to start their own business. I mean, this is the fundamental bit of economic planning that most families do. Would I be right to say so?
Oh yeah, I think that's how they build. A lot of people build wealth that way from their equity in their homes. But I also build on something that Tom said. Back in the 1980s, I wrote a story or several stories that Uncle Sam through HUD was actually the largest landlord in Denver during the 1980s because they had so many foreclosures. And then their thing is that what's different by this time is it's spread across the whole country. Back then, it was primarily the Colt states, as they called them back then: Colorado, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. We were the ones that were hammered hard, and also, other economies were booming. So a lot of people from Denver left. There's a great exodus from people from Denver to California primarily because there were jobs there. Now, where do you go?
Colorado's always had, it seems to me, Colorado's always had a bit of a counter-cyclical economic roller coaster, and the 80s were a perfect example. The rest of the country seemed to be pulling out that great Reagan revolution. Money was coming in, jobs were doing it, and things were getting better on the national level. It seemed as though in Colorado in those 80s, I remember them, as you said, oil shale went bust because of the economy going forward. In Grand Junction, you could buy, I remember, lots of 10 homes going for $100,000. Not $100,000 a house, $100,000 for 10 homes. I mean, it decimated the Western Slope. It seems so. Even today, our unemployment is a couple points lower than the national average. What gives? Any thoughts?
Well, we've got a much more diversified economy today than we had back then. I think one of the things that people don't really give enough credit to in terms of the underpinnings of our economy is the military and intelligence community in Colorado, and how strong that part of the economy is, and how many subcontractors we have that I really think provide a pretty significant base for our economy. But in a growing state, in a state that has always been capital poor and resource rich, whether it's minerals or intellectual resources, we've always been rich in those things, but we've never been rich in capital. And so we are affected more than other states because of our reliance on outside capital and the ability to access those capital markets in a consistent way is more important to Colorado than most states. And that's one of the real problems that we're facing today is lack of certainty in the marketplace. People don't know what rules they're playing by in the lending community. Consumers don't know, and bankers don't know.
Bring it from the 80s today. What has caused this housing slowdown or the real estate slowdown? I get a sense that we're bottoming out. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but give me an idea. What happened here in Colorado? And I want to touch on some of those financial institutions, including the one up in Greeley that went bankrupt and others. What happened here in Colorado that took us off that wonderful escalator by home value going up every year?
Well, I think a lot of things happened. One of the things that there were some studies that came out that showed that Coloradans were getting more interest-only loans than almost any other area in the country. And I think that, like a lot of Tom's clients, it made sense for them as from a financial perspective. The problem was that people were buying these who were, let's say, school teachers or Denver cops who had no chance of their income going up. And the idea was, well, you'll just refinance when, when it comes time to pay the piper. And then they weren't able to. And so that's part of it. People got involved in bad loans. And then also there was, a certain amount of overbuilding, not as bad as in Phoenix or Las Vegas or something like that. But there was a certain amount of overbuilding. People were buying homes as not a place to live, but as an investment. The idea of making a quick buck. And it just doesn't always work out that way. A lot of timing is everything, and the timing was bad for a lot of people.
An interest-only loan, for instance, makes perfect sense, or one of those great ARM loans make a great sense if you plan on staying in a place a short amount of time and then getting out of Dodge. Or if you're certain that the price of your home or your business property is just going to keep going up. Yeah, an interest-only loan, while it's not perfect, you have it for a few years, you sell, and you take it away. Why not? Was it the fiscal institutions selling these products, or was it the people buying these products that caused the problem?